Can we unmute us?
Oh, Councillor Mears, can you hear us?
He needs to.
Yes, I can hear you.
Great, thank you. We'll move forward. So, councillors, we've got community consultation, which is item 2 on the agenda, and we have 3 speakers tonight, councillors, to speak to item 6.1, which is a notice of motion. So I would ask if the first speaker, David McKinnon, was to come forward, please. Thank you, David. You've got 3 minutes, and you've got to disclose if you've made any political donations or not.
Yep, no political donations, but a lot of interest in water, and getting a lot of feedback from other ratepayers. They're interested as well. Of course, the big interest is cost, and cost is something we don't know about, and for some reason we're not going to be told. And it just seems outrageous that you have to pass a motion to get information that help us make a decision, the only decision we can possibly make, which is it worth it? Are we going to have to pay? Who is exactly going to pay? Where's the water going? What sort of deal is going to be cut with the land? As far as I know, of the dam will actually be, it's currently owned by council, so I'd imagine there's some sort of deal in motion. But the public, the ratepayers, do not know what's going on. And we have to pass a motion in council to say, please give us some information so we can make a decision. I mean, it just seems silly. And I mean, it's a brave man that stands up and says, can we have some information to make a decision? And of course, there's a lot in the room who follow party politics. And those party politics go, do not ask questions, it's all taken care of. Yes, it might be a mascot for an election, but that doesn't matter. We're not paying for it, the ratepayers are paying for it. I mean, we have ministers who stand up in the locality recently and say, we need this water to expand a couple of abattoirs in town. I mean, we as ratepayers know that those abattoirs are principally employed by overseas temporary workers. And who's paying for the dam? Who's paying for the water? I mean, we have a irrigation licence. We went for years through battles with IPART to try and get a reasonable price so that it would be viable for irrigators to actually work on their land. It wasn't viable the way it was. And that went on for years. And already IPART has said the short pipeline from Chaffey to Dungowan has increased water by about 1/3, which I understand is not yet being paid for by the ratepayers. And I'm just shocked that a motion is put up, give us some information to make a decision. And it just, instead we have a dam that was doubled and it was supposed to be a solution to our problem and it wasn't. So we put up another dam and that's going to be the answer to our solution, to our problem I should say. And really it won't be. And here we are trying to make this vital decision and we have a gentleman who says, can we put up a motion to get some information? And people go, well, we'll think about that. Well, I don't know that that's a good idea. And I mean, it's completely confusing.
Mr. McKinnon, can you draw your...
Yes, I will. The ratepayers are very concerned that there's going to be a multiplying of cost and we're wearing it. And it's going to industry. Where the Chaffey Dam went, everybody knows that water went to industry. We didn't even get our allocation during the drought. It went off to industry. And nobody's been able to track it. It's been asked for where it went, and we don't know where it went. And the same will happen with Dungowan Dam.
Thank you, David. I'd like to call on the second speaker, Lynn Allen. Right. Then you're speaking to 6.1 and you do have 3 minutes.
Okay. Mr Mayor, councillors, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Councillor Mears, for the motion seeking release of information regarding Dungowan Dam from the state government, which I strongly support and appreciate the option to speak. I'm Dr. Lynn Allen, a retired GP and a resident in Tamworth since 1980. Tamworth Water Security Alliance was formed due to our concern over the water situation and poor water management in the state government. We would like the business case to be released so that we know the full information around which decisions will be made. We would like to know what inputs were considered and whether all the options were actually looked at. We've circulated a brochure which the councillors have at the meeting, which gives the most likely ones other than a 22.5 gigalitre billion-dollar dam with an annual projected yield of 7 gigalitres. The first option was purified water recycling. It's the highest yielding option. This is done in many cities such as Perth, Singapore, Lismore, Parkes, London. Currently, our 3 large abattoirs use 43% of the town water supply. We understand the CSIRO recycling pilot at the abattoirs was extremely successful, and with a possible yield of 6 gigalitres, the current capacity of our Dungown Dam. Stormwater harvesting has been used in Orange and now supplies 25% of their water. It would help here to increase our water supply and also help with flood mitigation, which I know was a problem, and I read the previous council's meeting. Rainwater tanks to all households and businesses would increase our water storage and provide backup during dry periods. In my garden, I have 2 rainwater tanks which provide all my garden water and also my drinking water. I have no lawn, but my garden is natives and I have 3 vegetable gardens. Tanks would also stop as much water flooding into the street during heavy downpours and reduce the amount that makes it into the CBD from East Tamworth. Reading the study before that, we had a 10 square kilometre catchment area running into the CBD. No wonder we have a problem. The other option we hope was seriously looked at was upgrading our current dam, which, if we consider the environment and waste, would be value for money and water security. Perhaps into the amount for the new dam blowing out to $1 billion, with less than half of this being funded by the state and federal government. Better value for money would be to look at 2, 3 or even 4 of our options, with guaranteed reliable water instead of just depending on capturing rain in the dam. Thank you.
Thank you. The third speaker on item 6.1 is Graham Carter. Graham, if you'd like to come up with it.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak with our elected council representatives. I'm a Tamworth local. My family and I have lived here for the past 12 years. I've lived through the past water crisis and understand the impact it's had on the community. I also understand the conversation that it has generated. I describe myself as a passionist economist. I have worked to promote the use of economics as a tool for sound decision making. I feel economics has the ability to greatly contribute to good public policy when it is used as it is intended. It can help provide a rational, evidence-based decision making. It can help in the allocation of the scarce taxpayer dollar. So a little bit more about myself. I previously worked in the Tamworth office of the Department of Primary Industry, the Office of Water. My roles included the socio-economic assessment of water sharing plans and major development assessments. I am a skilled practitioner in cost-benefit analysis. So what is cost-benefit analysis? It is a data-driven process. It's a process where we try to tally up the estimated market or monetary value of the direct, indirect, intangible and opportunity costs of a project. Simply put, if the total of all the benefits as valued outweigh the costs, then a project has merit. However, conversely, if the costs outweigh the benefits, then we should reconsider such a project. Cost-benefit analysis is only relevant to the specific base case exam. In any cost-benefit assessment, you need to be fully aware and have the explicit details of what was included and what was more specifically not included in the assessment. This is what makes up the underlying assumptions. Descriptions of these assumptions are crucial information required by informed people to make just and fair decisions. Without that information, you're working on the credibility of the assessment. You don't know, have they actually used valid data or fact? Looking at the 2017 GHD, Don't Go and Down project assessment, a number of issues in that benefit cost analysis report raise concerns for. First and foremost is, as an industry practitioner, benefit cost analysis is too often used as a method to promote or even justify a project. It's a purely marketing exercise. And so when you come up with a benefit cost ratio of 1.06 for a preferred government-funded project, it really makes you think, as a practitioner, what is going on? Even the best options, even the best effort by the proponent people trying to make this project work can barely make it over the line to suggest it's justifiable.
Graham, can you bring your...
So going forward, in the GHD 2017 report, with increased costs of the dam, it pushed it to be economically marginal and unviable. So anything above $480 million made the project economically unviable. This is something that's a concern. We need to know what is behind the assumptions. We've seen, based on 2017 information, the project does not stand up. Economists did sound, specific work, and they couldn't make it work. So what's going on? If it doesn't work, why don't we know that? Why are we still continuing? If I just carry on just one moment.
Councillors, can I have somebody move that we give an extension of time? Councillor Tickle, seconded. Those in favour? Aye.
If you move forward, we look at the 2021 Productivity Commission report, which is a federal body that is independent and charged with getting value for money from taxpayer dollars. They identified the Dungowan Dam project as an example of flawed decision making. And they chose the words carefully, and they put it in their report, which was released as a public document, because they saw it as an error that does not need to be carried on. They identified specifically that the analysis in 2017 was constrained, restricted to infrastructure options. No other option was considered. The only option to be allowed to be assessed was building infrastructure. If we look at non-infrastructure options, the benefit cost ratio for those options are far greater than 1. It's proven results across Australian urban water supply. But the 2017 project assessment explicitly chose to exclude any inclusion in those assessments. And that really shows it's a flawed assessment, but that is being used as a justification for the project to proceed. Moving on from that point, the Productivity Commission actually took it upon themselves to do a back-of-the-envelope assessment. And they identified that based on the price of water, irrigation water licences here in the Namoi Valley and the Peel Valley, that for an expenditure of $11 million, we can yield the same amount of water that the $1 billion now discussed Dungowan Dam will provide for the citizens of the town. That's a mere 2% of the proposed expenditure in 2017 of $480 million. So it really begs the question, where is the rationale coming from that this was an economically justifiable proposal? Who is not telling the truth, I suppose? But if it is true, then we need to see where they've got their assumptions from, where the information's coming from, and what is the justification. So in conclusion, I look at this. Economics provides us an opportunity to really make sound judgment when used correctly. Unfortunately, it does get pushed to a side and sometimes gets abused by process. But the fundamentals are there, and we've got the ability for smart people to use them. And we should be calling upon state government, as a council, we should be asking for all the information so we can make informed, rational decisions. And my concern is at this stage, looking at what is on the table, the ratepayers and the residents of Tamworth are going to be given what could only be considered as an expensive, non-cost effective, overpriced project that will leave us as Tamworth ratepayers and Tamworth community paying off something that someone's decided was a good thing for Tamworth for the next 20 to 50 years. We don't deserve that.
Thank you, Graham. Council is moving forward. Councillors, we'll go back to we suspended standing orders. Move that we resume standing orders. Councillor Rodder, Councillor Cook-Southall, those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. We're moving on to item 3, which is minutes from the previous meeting. Could I have someone move those minutes? Councillor Tickle, seconded Councillor Byrd. Councillor Tickle, you want to speak to that? Any other comments from councillors? I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour?
Aye.
Carried. Moving on to item 4, disclosures of interest. Is there any councillors wish to disclose any pecuniary or non-pecuniary interest tonight? There being no disclosures of interest, I'll move on to the Merrill Minute. There is no Merrill Minute. I'll move on to item 6, notice of motion. We have Councillor Mears on Zoom. Councillor Mears, would you like to move your notice of motion?
He's on mute.
You're on mute.
Councillor Mears, you're on mute.
On mute?
You're on mute.
How's that?
That's better.
Yeah, can you hear me? I know you're very muffled at that end, but I'll just want to put forward a motion for council to consider that the Tamworth Regional Council urgently seek the release of the following information from the New South
Councillor
Wales
Mears,
Government.
you're moving that recommendation?
Yes,
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Mark Rodder, you can speak to that now.
okay. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you. As elected leaders in our community and a third tier of government, and council also being subject to similar provisions of confidentiality as all government representatives are, it's difficult to understand why the council is not privy to the business plan in relation to Dungowan Dam, and or for that matter, any such other community infrastructure projects that we're having to make a decision on. If the current government wishes us to ask for our support for any major projects, it is, in my opinion, crucial to our decision making to be fully conversant with the business plan, its pros, its cons, and its expected costs, not only to the project's costs, but to the costs that may be passed on to our residents, inclusive of domestic, agricultural, and industrial users. Reading through the principles of the National Water Initiative, projects of this kind, costs are to be recouped from the water users. That would be the residents of Tamworth Regional Council. There's no guarantee that these costs are not going to recoup from higher water prices. And it's my understanding that this detail, although denied, is contained within the business case plan, which was presented to Parliament on the 9th of March 2022. In addition, our Water Minister saying that the Council wants the dam, the Mayor wants the dam, and the project as well as, but I do not recall the Water Minister asking myself. He may have spoke to other councillors, but as part of this council, I've had no approaches from the Water Minister, so I believe that his articulating that is incorrect, and to the councillors that I'm aware of, no approach has been made by the Water Minister, so how can he speak on our or my behalf? I'm not pro or anti the dam, but I think that in any major project, the business plan is crucial to it going ahead and to ensure that the ratepayers of Tamworth Regional Council aren't going to be worse off in the future. Thank you.
Thanks, councillor Mears. Any councillor wish to speak against that recommendation? There being no councillor wishing to speak against the recommendation, is there any further comment or councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to preface my comments by making the following observations. Look, there's no doubt I'm still jaded by what I believe was our community's collectively poor treatment during the 2017-2020 drought. And, I think that was reflected around the state with, many storages. And I'm still sort of gobsmacked how our main supply dam, Chaffey Dam, newly augmented in 2016 from 62 to 100 gigalitres, could be permitted to slip to 12.9% in 2020 and that fast approached dead storage. In 2016, local politicians lauded the project as securing Tamworth's water future. In October 2019, panic set in too with an announcement of an emergency pipeline from Chaffey to Kalawa that sits idle now until the next drought and 20% capacity in Chaffey Dam. And of course, there was also the announcement of the new Dungowan Dam as well. The original purpose of Chaffey Dam was clear: to regulate the flow of the Peel River and provide water for irrigators in the Peel River Valley and augment the water supply for Tamworth City, and you could add Katinga and Moombi into that as well. But that wasn't our experience during the last two droughts in 2007 and 2020. I can recall a meeting with residents and farmers I had at Summerton School one night in 2019, frustrated they couldn't touch the Peel River water that flowed past as environmental flows, but water that as soon as it entered the Nemoy River at Carroll Gap was able to be traded. If a newly augmented 100 gigalitre dam couldn't secure Tamworth's water future, many in our community do wonder how a new 22.5 gigalitre dam will. Which brings me to the proposed new Dungowan Dam. There are no proposals to amend water management legislation, reconnect water licences to the land from which they were detached, save the Peel Valley water sharing plan will likely be changed, impacting water holders within our valley and provide them with even less security. In 2015-2016, we knew the cost of the 38 gigalitre upgrade to Chaffey Dam, but in 2022, we aren't permitted to know the full cost of a proposed new 22.5 gigalitre dam, and many in our community do ask the question why. If the proposal stacks up, the government should be shouting from the rooftops, all is good. My fear is that the proposed $484 million project will become $870 million and indeed $1 billion project, but who knows? We don't have a public works crews that construct anything in New South Wales anymore. So there's no government department keeping private enterprise honest anymore. So big companies charge like wounded bulls. But the sting in the tail will be for us, the residents, who will pay dearly for some of the most expensive water in the state. And we know this to be true because we've just seen IPART increase those charges, and we already pay the most of any residents, farmers, businesses or industry in the state of New South Wales. IPART, or the government, doesn't seem to give a stuff about that fact. They haven't fixed the disparity or the inequity. I really like the option of a pipeline from Keepit Dam to Tamworth as an option to Tamworth, because surely a tiny percentage of the 440 gigalitre dam within that established catchment could be utilised for critical human needs. But there's not an option because the impacts because of the impacts on irrigation. But what about the impacts within a large Dungowan dam, the cost to the environment, the cost to the farmers, businesses, industry and residents, ratepayers and taxpayers? As for transparency, many of us squeaked the term during our respective campaigns at the 2021 election, and here's our opportunity to request the New South Wales government to deliver some transparency and tell us the true cost to the residents of TRC and the taxpayers, and also indeed an already stressed environment. As for the project, I think we should know the impact of the massive cost, somewhere between 484 million and 1.2 billion. The amount set aside for Tamworth, the impact other water users propose changes to the Peel Valley water sharing plan or other water management legislation, the cost of raw water, the impact to an already stressed environment. What are the government's plans for our region if it doesn't rain and fill Dungowan as we saw during the 2017-2019 drought? The state government need to be brave and daring on this issue. Options and alternatives are pipelines to establish dams and water recycling technology. This would be a better spend of ratepayers and taxpayers' money, but I commend Councillor Mears' motion. Thank you.
Councillor Southall.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was just going to ask for a slight amendment to the motion, which is part 4, the business case. So just those 3 words. I haven't sent that in earlier, so sorry. So part 4 of that motion, an amendment is to with the words the business case as well. So basically, as per the community members that spoke earlier, and in their prepared document, I think that we should be requesting a release of the business case as well.
So can you just word that amendment?
The business case, that was it, full stop. Sorry, just 3 words. Dot point 4, yes.
Councillor Mears, would you accept that into your recommendation, or do we want to talk to an amendment?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Accepts it. So we don't really need to go down the path of moving an amendment. So is the seconder happy with that?
Yep.
So it's now got part 4. Okay, thank you. Further speakers? Councillor Berg.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Without any prepared statement, I think it's important to respond to a couple of issues and highlight one that hasn't been addressed tonight. The one that hasn't been addressed tonight is a safety upgrade mandate that's going to have to fall on this council and the ratepayers if Chappie Dam doesn't go ahead and new Chappie Dam. And can I ask Bruce Logan just to say what the number is of the dollar value of the safety upgrade?
In the pipeline.
Mr. Mayor, we understand the price is around $150 million.
So that burden is going to fall upon this council and the ratepayers if the Dungeon Dam, as proposed, doesn't go ahead. And that's not spoken about, hasn't been spoken about here tonight. I think it needs to be laid on the table. Second thing is, if and I'm supporting the motion, by the way, I'm supporting it. But if we don't know the cost of the dam, how come we keep using $1 billion? Surely if we don't know the cost of the dam, we don't know the cost of the dam. We have hit 484, someone's saying it's 1.2, so we just don't know. And that's why we need to have this motion get up. And the third one I want to say is that it was introduced, I think, by the first speaker about party politics. I can assure you there's no party politics happening around this council chamber. Steve Mears is a good man. He's a good friend. I've come to like him enormously. And I don't find that very comfortable when party politics get introduced to us when it's not happening around this chamber. So thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Further speakers? Councillors? No? Councillor? Okay, there being no further comment, Councillor Mears, would you like to close the debate, or have you spoken your words? Would you like to close the debate? You're muted, Councillor Mears. Would you like to close the debate?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, the debate's closed. Councillors, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we move on through the business paper to open reports. Those in the audience, if you choose to leave, you can now. Thank you for your input. Councillors, we move on in the business paper, item 7, environmental planning. There is no reports there. You're very lucky. We'll move on to infrastructure and services. 8.1. Could I have a mover for 8.1, please? Councillor Southall. Seconded. Councillor Coe. Councillor Southall, would you like to speak to that?
Yes, please. Thank you. I just wanted to make a comment, Mr. Mayor, around this recommendation that I think it's very important that we do support the fee waiver for the National Primary Games. I think there's a large economic benefit that this will bring to the Tamworth community. It's not only the sporting, but there's other benefits to the community, including tourism, hospitality services, accommodation services, to host major sporting events. We are a very sporting region and city, and as a council, it is crucial that we promote participation in grassroots sports wherever possible. Thank you.
Speakers against the recommendation? Speakers for, councillor Rodder.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yes, I 100% support this. Anyone that actually sees the National Primary Games, sees Northern Ireland, yes, National Primary Games, sees the large amount of kids that turn up for a myriad of sports around our local government area for that weekend, and it's certainly become a very popular event throughout the year. Obviously impacted a bit by COVID, but it certainly will be good to be back and see all those kids having a good time on the sporting field.
Thank you, councillor Rodder. Further speakers? No further speakers? No further comment? I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. We'll move on to item 8.2. Lead councillor Beth, sorry. Yes, I know. Seconded councillor Southall. Councillor Beth, did you want to speak to that?
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I totally support the recommendation because said in one of the notice of motion about how I handle the water prices, and that can be sort of got the highest water prices around. Look, IPART did the government did a report, and also IPART did a report that really indicated that there was a variance of prices across right across the state with domestic water waste management charges, and it also was a fairly significant increase. But however, the increases that are right across the state are so varied. It wouldn't be comparing apples and apples. It's apples and oranges, and we really need to have a real look at. And I haven't got a problem with transparency of waste charges. We all need to know exactly what we're paying for. But the varied nature of the geographical locations that different councils right across the state have to actually operate under, and also when they say the increases, over the last, in my involvement in local government, over the last 20 odd years, there's been significant increases, and they've been unfunded mandates by the state and federal government, and it's really put an impost on our waste management. And there's a whole heap of variances there. So I would much prefer to see the transparency of all waste charges, but not regulated by IPART reports. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
Anyone wish to speak against the recommendation? No. Councillor Southwell, I know that you want to.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I'd just like to move an amendment to the motion, if that's okay, and I have sent that in earlier, that we also write to the Minister for Local Government requesting that the IPART delegation is removed for reasons outlined in the report. It was obviously requested by the Minister in 2010. It's been some time since that's been requested, and I think we should write to the Minister saying exactly what my fellow councillor Betts has said, basically that, it should not be regulated, and the IPART delegation should be removed.
Before I move for a second for the amendment, I'll ask councillor Betts, who was the mover of the motion, would he accept that as part of the first motion?
Yes, I certainly would be very happy to do that.
That now, councillors, do you understand that now becomes a motion with councillor Brooks' addition? So, further discussion?
We just set the motion up there.
Oh,
It is,
That is-
that's it.
Oh, right.
Got a couple of minutes to read through it.
sorry.
It's great when these additions are short.
Yeah, sorry.
Whilst reading councillor Rodder,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, the amendment is good too. Thank you, Councillor Southwell. That was actually an addition from a previous government, so I don't know why the current government would want to actually be stuck by something from the previous government on this matter. But Councillor Betts is right. There is a lot of cost shifting, but we see that more and more. And I don't, think in relation to IPART and the proposed transparency of waste charges, it just amazes me that organisations like IPART that they'll talk about that and transparency, yet they don't talk about the transparency around water management. So certainly support this recommendation and hope that it does some good.
Thanks, Councillor Rodder. Further discussion? Councillor Cates.
Mr Mayor, I just want to point out in the actual report, IPART themselves are saying that in one part, it doesn't actually preclude regional or rural councils from having a different charge. So even if they set the charge, then those councils could actually change that based on providing different services in different locations. And then they also went on to say variation in domestic waste management charges may reflect differences in service levels, but also differences in council-specific costs and cost allocation. So they're actually saying themselves that it's not going to be viable to have those rates set in their own document.
If they're pushing for it another way. Mr. Logan, did you make comment in that, or you just?
Mr. Mayor, I would give Councillor Coates quite correct. At the moment, IPART report is not saying that they want to regulate domestic waste charges and set a maximum amount that a council can pay. But that's certainly possible, and in their report they say that this is a first step, and they're going to continue to monitor how domestic waste charges are levied across the state. And if they feel it's necessary, they reserve the right to then regulate after that.
Thank you. Further comments, councillors? Councillor Betts, did you want to close the debate? Councillors, I'll put the recommendation as printed with the extra bit on. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we'll move on to item 8.3. Water New South Wales Customer Advisory Group. Could I have someone move that recommendation, please? Councillor Betts, seconded Councillor Tickle. Councillor Betts, you wish to speak to that? Anybody wish to speak against that recommendation? Further speakers in favour? Councillors Southwell.
It was actually just a question, if I can, through you, Mr Mayor, just a question to our Waste and Water Director is, do the information from this group normally come back to council or minutes or anything like that? Not typically reporting back on it. Yeah.
Mr. Mayor, no, the minutes from the Customer Advisory Group are not usually reported to council, haven't been reported since I've been involved.
Further comments? Councillors, further comments? No? I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We move on to item 8.4. Could I have a mover? Councillor Sutherland. Did you put your hand up?
No.
Secondly, Councillor Tickle. Councillor Sutherland, would you like to talk to that? I thought you put your hand up, Councillor.
Oh, right, yeah. No, but yeah, I'll speak. Just speaking in support of the recommendation, I think that it's a great step forward in the right direction. That
His dogs.
Steve, if you want to go on mute, it would be great. Just wanted to speak in favour of the recommendation. Moving forward in the food, organics, and garden organics recycling space is something that I think we're talking in the direction of the region. It's something that most residents are passionate about. And asking for an extension through the grants as put down from what I think it's great to be able to extend it to make sure the work can be done at the level that we really require.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. Anyone wish to speak against the recommendation? Further speakers for the recommendation? There being no further speakers, I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against? Carried. We'll move now, councillors, on to beg your pardon?
Just muted the speakers.
Thank you. Did he want to speak?
No, he's just
Councillors, we move now on to governance and strategy. Item 9.1, could I have a councillor move item 9.1? Councillor Cates, seconded Councillor Southwood. Councillor Cates, would you like to speak to that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, only just to say that, there's been quite a lot going on during COVID times, and there looks to have been a bit of change in some of those 355 committees. I think things around the volunteers, meeting times have been difficult. Some of them have actually had difficulty filling their executive positions. And I think that I had a bit of a question around the safety of working bees, but I just wanted to say that the reports are quite extensive and quite informative.
Thanks, Councillor Cates. Anybody wish to speak against the recommendation? Anyone else wish to speak to the recommendation? Councillor Southwood.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment to thank the outgoing members of the Untitled Recreation Ground S355 committee, which has now folded, including Robin Mowbray, Margaret Markwick and Greg Gibson. And also, in addition, in relation to the other minutes from all of the other meetings, just like to make a comment to thank all the volunteers and community members and TRC staff for their ongoing work, maintenance, and ongoing commitment to improve the communities that make up our amazing region. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Southwood. Any other councillors wish to speak to the recommendation? Councillors, I'll put the recommendation. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Councillors, we move on to item 9.2. This is a very important one. It's 2022 Anzac Day Memorial Services within the Pembroke Regional Council area. And our duty tonight is to have councillors put their names forward to act as representatives of the listed communities. So I'm not sure if councillors have you've thought about it and got any ideas, but I'll start from the top and work down.
Mr. Mayor, probably move and move the recommendation and then just fill in the names after it's been motion for consent.
I've just been advised I should move the recommendation, which I should. Councillor Ryder, seconded Councillor Betts, and Councillor, you don't want to speak to that, Councillor Ryder, so moving forward with that. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. So we'll move through the names of the centres now. So Atunga. I guess, councillors, I've probably gone to Atunga for the last 30 years. If somebody else wishes to go, they may.
Question, Mr. Mayor. I'm assuming that we can only attend one.
You can attend as many as you like, councillor.
The times
The times work out. Yeah.
It's just that
We don't have the times there yet.
Yeah,
There's no time for a time.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, councillors, if I just maybe give you a heads up. So you'll notice in the report that we haven't received formal invitations. This is something that councillors can or may not attend. You do not have to nominate somebody to attend every service. That is not a requirement. We've got formal invitations for 2 of the services, which is Nundle and Tamworth, but you can nominate to attend any of the others. But if we simply can't attend, there's only 9 of you. If you simply can't attend, then we don't attend some services. This is your preference as to where you would like to attend.
That is 3 o'clock on the Monday after Anzac Day. I'm assuming.
which one's that?
The Atunga?
Yes, it is.
I'll do that.
Other councillors got any preferences? Councillor Baird.
Yes, there I probably won't be able to do any, as I'm a member of the Tingle Lions Club and I person that organises the Tingle Anzac Day celebrations, which basically goes all day from early till late in the evening. So I'll be unavailable, but I'll be at Tingle.
Councillor Page.
Mr Mayor, I normally go up to Benmere, so I'm happy to do that again, and I usually go down to Tingle after that, so I'm happy to cover those, unless someone else wants to do those spaces.
Other councillors, councillor Wood,
I was just going to put my name down for Jurai. I'll be attending the Tamworth dawn service, but yeah, after that, yeah, I think it's important to go to some of the smaller communities as well. So happy to put my name down for Jurai.
thank you. Councillor Sutton.
Again, I think I'll be at the Tamworth Dawn service, but Manila would really, sorry, shall we see?
Sure.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, I apologise for my laziness. Yeah, I'd like to put my name down to attend the Anzac ceremonies out of Manila on that day.
So that'll be Manila, but not Manila Central School, which is normally held on a different day, isn't it?
Thursday.
It's on a Thursday. Yes. Councillor Rod, I know you're going to go to a couple.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I think for about, I don't know how many years I've been going to Somerton, but I've just had an arm wrestle with Councillor Burke and he's going to Somerton. Then I thought I'd go to Jurai, but I've lost the arm wrestle with Councillor Southwell. So I'll go to the Gibb Street Memorial. I will attend the dawn service in Tamworth and the Gibb Street Memorial.
Councillor Ronnie, you can go to Somerton as well if you wish.
Sorry?
You can go to Somerton, you could go to Somerton. It's not restricted to one councillor.
It's okay. It's okay. Well, sorry, Mr Mayor, we do need someone for some of those other memorials.
Oh, we did, yes, we did, yes. Councillor Burke, you're doing Somerton?
Yep. Yes, I am, Mr Mayor. Happy to do something.
None of the others yet? That's fine.
I'll see how we go. Yep.
Councillor Dick.
I will attend the dawn service in Tamworth and the Gibb Street one. And then last year I then went on out to Barraba because I don't know what their plans are this year, but it was around midday from memory at the cemetery. And previous years there had been a march in the main street. They also have a dawn service, but I won't commit to that. But I will go out during the day.
To Barrett, no. Councillor Mears, you put your hand up.
Yes, thanks. I can't hear everybody, but I'd be happy to do Nundle.
Is that everything?
So councillors, councillors, I'll do Tamworth. Probably go to dawn service like I normally do. And councillor Kate, councillor Betts, sorry.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Look, I'm happy to do the Moonby School and the Sonic Retirement Village.
Betts, good. Good. And the Moonby School.
Moonby School, Manila School, councillor.
It's just Moonby School. It's Sonic. It's Moonby School.
No.
It's just Moonby.
Manila.
Is Moonby School there? Yeah, it's just as Moonby. No, it's Moonby School.
So you're doing Moonby Masonic?
Yeah, I've just been informed by fellow councillors that they're both on the same day with very close proximity of time. Councillor Coates would be happy to do one or the other. So.
I'll do movie school.
You're going to be very busy, councillor Coates.
They're all very close together.
So councillor Betts, you'll be continuing anyway doing the other bit.
I'll be doing the other bit, but yeah, councillor Coates will be there as well.
So really the only one we haven't got somebody for is Manila Central School, which is at 10:45 a.m.
On Thursday.
on the Thursday.
I'm happy to do that if it's, if nobody else is.
Well, councillor
like
Tickle, if you wish to
yourself
do
or
that, we can put your name to it. If you don't,
needs to be
We
filled.
don't have to go to everything, but it's nice if we can just attend as many as possible, so we'll put councillor Tickle down to.
Monday.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
Yes,
Can I just clarify, is that the school is, that's on the 21st, the Thursday before? Is that what you're saying?
Monday the Thursday.
No.
Because that would be during Easter.
During the school holidays.
During school holidays. So I think that'd be doing it the week after.
can't help you with it.
Yeah, no, it'll be after, because the school holidays on the 21st, so they'll be doing it after.
After, okay. We'll
We'll
obviously,
find someone.
yeah, we'll get further information on that. Councillors, that probably just about completes that list. So thank you very much for your contribution. It's a very important day and something we should be very much involved in. So we've had the recommendation moved, seconded and passed, but now we've got a list of names. Council, with that being the case there, we'll move on to item 9.3. Moved councillor Rodder, seconded councillor Sutherland. Councillor Rodder, do you wish to speak to that?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
Anybody wish to speak against that recommendation? Any further comments before the recommendation? I'll put that recommendation, those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, carried. Move on to item 9.4. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Betts, seconded councillor Mears. You'd like to speak to that, councillor Betts? Would there be a speaker against the recommendation? There's not. Anyone else wish to speak to the recommendation? Nobody else wishing to speak to that? I'll put that recommendation. Councillor Rodder.
Sorry, Mr Mayor, only to obviously make that observation that our airport revenue was way down, obviously due to COVID. But let's hope with opening up of the state and the country and Bonza, we'll increase those revenue.
Thank you, councillor Rodder. That's it was a good announcement today by them, so that's good. Councillors, I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour?
Right.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we'll move on to item 10 on the business paper, community services. Could I have someone to move 10.1? Councillor Tickle, second Councillor Sutherland. Councillor Tickle, you wish to speak to that?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. That's a very thorough report, and I would just like to ask for an update, but before I do so, I'll give some background information on the Artists in Residence project. I wonder what,
Yes, you are.
and that is in regard to repurposing the Tamworth railway station's master's residence. And I'll just give a little background on that, mainly for the benefit of the new councillors and to refresh all our memories. The recommendation to progress this project was adopted by council in late 2001. The Heritage Advisor for Transport New South Wales was very enthusiastic about the project and its viability. And Transport New South Wales indicated they had substantial funds to contribute and they were keen for the project to move forward. Letters of support were received from the UNE, Arts Northwest, the Lands Council, Aboriginal Lands Council, Tamworth Regional Council, and they were submitted to Transport New South Wales and in support of the project. And as I've just said, Transport New South Wales are fully supportive and were prepared to commit funds. There's also a lot of other verbal support within the community for this wonderful project and to restore the station master's cottage and to use it for an artist in residence. It'd be one of the first of its kind in Tamworth and to preserve that history. So through you, Mr Mayor, could we please have an update on the project and if we have yet to have secured the funding and where that is up to?
Gina,
Through you, Mr Mayor. In terms of where, as far as we are aware, Transport for New South Wales is proceeding with the project. They've advised that they've done a project plan and that's just been signed off by whoever the senior person in Transport, and it's moving through their internal levels of seniority. The project plan that they've endorsed relates to repairing the building so that it can be used as an artist in residency. They are currently talking to the new contractor too, because councillors may or may not be aware originally John Holland was the contractor for Transport for New South Wales. There's now a new contractor, UGL, and they're actually in discussions with Transport as to what's required to repair the building. As part of that, they're engaging specialists to have a look at and whether there are any issues, specific issues with the building, so it can be made safe and suitable for residency. So the process is ongoing, and clearly we'll keep in touch and we'll want to know as soon as the building's ready for occupancy. We also don't know as yet what Transport New South Wales will do in terms of whether the building's going to be leased or offered to a community organisation to lease, or whether it will be offered to council or how that will work. So it's a bit early for that. Thank you. Thanks, Mr Mayor.
council or speakers against that recommendation? Further speakers for the recommendation? Councillors? Taylor?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to acknowledge the hard work over many years of the trade, and just say how exciting it is to look at the Wild Sparks Festival that's coming up in October, and with Paul Singh and again the work the trade's been done to have more live events and get people back in through social interactions and having fun and connecting in that artistic space. And also congratulate the track and the execution and the hard work of the implementing the public art strategy we have, led by Richard Guthrie and the team. The work that we do through public art throughout the region is amazing, and I think having that acknowledged throughout the work we're doing. I'm looking forward to being a part of the committee moving forward, and yeah, just want to acknowledge the work of Richard.
Councillor Cates.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Tickle. I was going to ask that exact question about what was happening with the Station Master's Cottage. I also have a question about point 2.5, which is the public art update. Number 4, taking flight sculpture. At the time of the report, that I understand that Transport New South Wales hadn't actually signed off on that, so I'm just wondering where it's up to.
Through Mr Mayor, my understanding is Transport for New South Wales has now signed off on that, and it's only just happened, that it's been given that approval. And I'm also aware, I don't know if council's aware, but we're about to start the fabrication of the actual sculpture. So it's certainly moving forward. Does that help, Councillor Coates? Do you need to know more?
That's fine, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Councillor Berg.
Just a question, Mr Mayor, is it in cement that it's going to be located on the Global Gateway roundabout
Through
at this point?
Sorry, through Mr Mayor, that's the decision of the council. The council resolved that it be located there. And that was probably nearly 12 months ago now.
Councillor Berg, that was a decision made by the previous council, but if this council had wanted to discuss that further, they have that option.
Mr Mayor, certainly the feedback that I'm hearing from the community is that they don't like it, that it's not representative of what we are. What are we? I think that we're a country music capital. We are an equine centre. We have a whole lot of other things that probably could be actually highlighted. I just would like the current council to actually have some ownership over this issue and be debated more fully.
Councillor Burt, we can do that into the future. We can have further discussions on that.
Can I just make a comment?
Yes.
Yeah, and I agree that the new councillors aren't aware of the background, and I think that's really important that you all are. In terms of what it's, just quickly, what it's meant to represent, it will all be lit, and that's part of our heritage in terms of being the city of light. So there is more to it than meets the eye, I would suggest. So, Mr Mayor, I'm certainly happy to provide a workshop with the councillors if that's what your councillors would like, so everybody can understand the background and how it's ended up getting to this point, and the involvement of the community, the broad community, in actually getting to this point. Remembering that public art, you don't have to like it, or you can like it or hate it, but at least the idea is to create conversation. It's certainly doing that.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I just wanted to make a comment just to back up what Councillor Sutherland said earlier in terms of the committee, and just commend the committee on their work, including Richard Guthrie, who's doing such a fantastic job. In terms of those particular artworks that were in as an attachment to the report, I think they're absolutely fantastic. They're very diverse artworks, which is great. And I've had a lot of positive comments from the community, conversely to Councillor Burke around that actual, I don't know if you call it what you call it, but that particular artwork, sculpture, thank you. I think in some cases we do want to move away a little bit from the golden guitar thing. I think it is crucial to our heritage, but we are much more than just a country music capital, and we are many other things, including a city of light. And because that particular sculpture will be lit up, and I think that will be absolutely fantastic. But not only me, but many other community members are also saying similar things. So it is controversial. Art is unique in that people will spark interest and things like that. But at a central project like the Global Gateway Park, I think it's important to have a very pronounced artwork like that, which, if anything else, will create interest and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, thank you.
Councillor Cade.
If I could just add, Mr Mayor, to what I said previously, to Councillor Burke, I think we need to remember that roundabout is not the entrance to Tamworth, it's actually where we have the Global Gateway and we have the airport, etc. So I take your point, we need to have more Tamworthian things, I'll call them, at the entrance to our region and our city. But I think that probably, I was like you, I thought, wow, this is a bit out there, but when you actually look at it and you look at the significance of it, I think, it's probably going to be quite fitting what we put underneath it, whether it's concrete, because I think that was one of your questions, wasn't it? So what are we going to do at the roundabout? That may be the thing that makes the difference as to how it actually looks.
If I could just answer Councillor Cates, my question was, is it going to be in concrete? Because if it's not in concrete, then it's quite dangerous.
I don't think it's
For its long-term existence.
Through Mr Mayor, Councillor Burke, all designs for sculptures on public roadways have to be designed in a way that they're frangible, so that if any sort of vehicle hits them, that they give and don't cause injury to the occupants and so on. So.
Did you have a comment, Councillor, please? Councillor Sutherland.
Just to reiterate the conversation talking around public art and having that linked up to the Tamworth Regional Council entrance strategy. And I love the inclusion of the entrance strategy and getting some kind of branding and some kind of unity across the region when people are entering a town across the region, or even coming into the LGA, knowing that it's part of the United Council, and having that not only with the sign that says welcome to the town, but also having that greenery and green space and having that accompanied with public art, I think will really have a huge statement piece as people are coming into the Tamworth region.
Thanks, Councillor Sutherland. That particular roundabout is a major entrance to the city. It's a major entrance from the airport, and it's a major entrance from the Gunbow Road. So we have a number of major entrances. Yes, Councillor Roberts.
I guess, thank you, Mr Mayor, just one question that I probably would like to ask is, given it is on a big roundabout and major entrance, what are the contingencies if a truck runs over it?
Councillor Roberts.
Mr Mayor, you mean, is there any danger, or is there
only from the point of view, I've seen the Vera Street Kangaroo Road, Scott Road roundabout get run over quite frequently, and you know, is there enough? Will there be enough space that a truckie won't just come flying down there and straight over the top?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Certainly the roundabout's been designed to comply with all the national standards, and the centre of the roundabout will probably not even let a truck get through. I don't think it is a significant concrete structure that won't provide much give, I think. And it is a large roundabout. It'd be very hard to go straight through the centre of it, I think.
Thanks, Mr. General Manager.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just make one more comment. Councillor, you're probably treating this as a matter arising from the actual agenda item. I support the comments of the Director, and that is, it's really an education thing for you. We need to go back and provide you with the reports you'll put to Council. There was a very well qualified group of local residents who are experts in public art that went through an extensive process to evaluate a whole range of options. And they, through Bridget, presented that to the previous council, and it was accepted. Then there was no doubt there was some debate around the table at that point. I think this is an education issue. I think we put the information back in front of you, and also re-advise the community is exactly what that new sculpture represents, because it's called Taking Flight. It is associated with the airport, but Taking Flight is also about the aspirations of our community. It is going to be a celebration of light as well. So let's just park that one until you're better informed about exactly where that piece of art came from.
Thank you. I think that's a very good idea that we do that. Councillor Tickle, do you want to close the debate?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thanks everyone for the comments, and particularly thank you to the staff and also to the community. I know a lot of effort goes into the planning of the public art, and one of the most recent ones that I've seen is the mural in Barraba, the second mural. It's fantastic, and I know that it's a very dedicated committee there, and with the support of council, they've seen that project realised in a very short time, and it's a marvellous addition to the other items of public art that they have in that town, as are the other items that are listed in the report. With in relation to the roundabout and at the Global Gateway Park and the airport, and driving near there, it is huge. So if any truck doesn't negotiate that roundabout, they shouldn't have a licence, but you know, it is seriously big. And in relation to the public art out there, there was consultation done on that, and it was a decision made by the previous council, and it comes back to further communications on that and to communicate to the community and indeed to our federal member who want to put a cow there. I think that we have advanced as a community. We are diverse. We certainly have a huge primary industry, but we've got a lot of other industries. And as is instance with the Global Gateway Park, there are companies moving into there that some of us would have never thought of. So I think that we do have to demonstrate whatever we do with our public art, and whether they are at the airport or wherever, but particularly on our entrances, that we are a diverse community. And some of the conversations last year was that we've had the golden guitar at the southern entrance, and it's very appropriate for that place that it's been there for years. And so now we're moving on and showing the diversity of our community, and it is difficult that when the decisions made by a previous council, but I can guarantee there was a lot of conversation around this and a lot of consultation. So it's just time for just more communication to outline why that decision was reached for that particular piece of public art.
That closes the debate, councillors. I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour? Those against? Carried. Council will move on to 10.2. Move Councillor Mark Sutherland, second Councillor Southwell. You'd like to speak to that, Councillor?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. Just like to say that at the Youth Council meeting was my first time present supporting the group, and I must say what an amazing group of young people we have. Part of the Youth Council is really passionate to bring some change and advocating for young people across the region. One area they did highlight was Youth Week, which kicks off in 12 days on the 4th of April. As a youth council, they're putting on two key events, one over at the Sports Dome and one over at the Tamworth Regional Youth Centre. I think the more that those events can be supported by fellow councillors and council staff, people show great support for our young people. And also, you know, moving forward, it'll be great to see council being able to include some resources for our youth council in forms of budget moving forward, but I think that's a conversation for another time. I just want to say that it's the amount of support we can throw behind our youth council will be an investment in the future of Tamworth Region.
Thank you, Councillor Sutherland. Councillors to speak against the recommendation? Further councillors to speak to the recommendation? Councillor Coates.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to commend the Youth Council on particularly their I Am program. As my fellow councillors will know, I have a fairly strong interest in mental health, and to see these young people standing up to support other young people who have either tried suicide or thinking suicide, I think that's a really, really big ask and a big gift by those couple of young people. The other thing I'd like to say is, having read and heard about the Youth Council, I'd just like to recognise their overall commitment and dedication to the youth of the region. I think they seem to be a very forward, inclusive and supportive group, and I've actually requested to go along to the next meeting next week, and I'm really looking forward to it, so well done.
Thanks, Councillor Coates. Councillor Sampson, do you wish to say?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just reiterate the comments of my fellow councillors tonight with what's been said, but also just ask a question which was within the minutes of the Youth Council minutes that was attached to this, raised by Councillor Lyon, who's the Deputy Mayor, just in terms of they have a concern about children walking on the road between William Cowper and McCarthy on Moore Creek Road. And they've raised it as a significant safety concern, which has been raised to us in the past. I just wanted to ask the General Manager if there are any plans to improve the safety for pedestrians along that particular road.
I can't give you a definite answer. Happy to take it on notice, but I certainly know that there is a shared pathway planned in the active transport strategy. It would be a matter of funding similar to what we've done at Forest Road, but I'm sure that it's actually part of our active transport strategy.
Councillor Sample, I'll support what the General Manager said there, because I've had a little bit of a look at some of the stuff there, and I'm pretty sure that what you've said is right, but yeah, we'll take the question on notice.
Through Mr. Mayor.
Oh.
Just make one comment, Councillor. There has been a response prepared by Regional Services, Nick Smith, our Senior Transport Officer, and that will go to the next meeting of the Youth Council. It does talk about that strategy and talks about when this might be a project that can be looked at. So there is a response that will be considered by the Youth Council at their next meeting.
Thanks, Gina. Councillors, any further discussion? There being no further discussion, I'll put the recommendation. Those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Councillors, we now go to item 11, which is reports to be considered in closed council. But before we do, Councillor Mears, I understand that you'll lose visual contact, but you'll still be able to hear the meeting when we step into closed council. Can you hear that, Councillor Mears?
No, can you repeat, Mr. Mayor?
You will lose visual contact, but you'll still be able to talk to us, and we will hear you. And you can listen to what we're saying.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, councillors, before I move a motion to move into closed council, I'll ask members of the public. It's easy. Deaf members of the public. Thank you for your attendance. Mr. General Manager, we don't have any representations to move anything into so I'll call for motion to move into closed council. Councillor Coates, second to Councillor Betts. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against?
Kate, could you open the door for?
Report on the outcome from closed council.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillor, to report from a closed session of the ordinary council meeting on the 22nd of March, you considered 2 items in closed council, and for both of those items you adopted the recommendations as per your business.
Could I have a councillor support the recommendation to accept that? Councillor Berg, second to Councillor Southwell. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Carried. Do you have any items in that?
Anything?